I'll do like a basic kind of introduction to meditation because this is your first time, which is exciting. Woo! There's so many different types of meditation, right? And so many different traditions, and there's Buddhist traditions, there are, within there's Chinese traditions and Tibetan traditions and Japanese traditions, Korean traditions, and then there's all the other meditation practices from all the other spiritualities of the world, Judaism and Christianity and Hinduism and on and on and on. And so ours is just one humble tradition. And the reason that I call this group It's Alive is because this great old saying, I'll use this word a lot, koan, which is sort of these little bits of dialogue between students or teachers, or bits of poetry, or just little sayings. And so this group is named after this koan, where somebody asks a teacher named Zhao Zhou, who's one of the big famous teachers in Koan Zen. He says, "What is meditation?" And Zhao Zhou says, "It's not meditation." Okay, well, what is it then? It's alive! It's alive. So that's it, I think. Meditation is really just the practice of being alive without adding anything extra on top of it. And if we do add extra stuff on top of it, like, am I doing it right? Then that's okay. You don't have to get rid of that. You just notice, oh, okay, what does it feel like when that gets added on top of it, right? And one of the things that's great about that to me is that you also notice how much, or I notice how much of my life is not really within my control. Right? Like, oh my God, I didn't decide to think that. Oh my God, I didn't decide to feel that, and then think that, and then feel that, and then, and so you can get really like worked up over trying to manage all the stuff that's going on in your meditation, and it'll be really exhausting, and you'll say, I hate meditation, I'm never doing this again. This didn't help me one bit, it just stressed me out even more. And so you can do that, and that's like totally fine, and people actually do that for year after year after year, and they go, I know there's something here, but I'm going to just continue making myself miserable. And so you can just notice if that happens, if all this stuff happens and you're trying to control it, and you can notice if it's heavy lifting. Meditation is heavy lifting, and it's okay if you do that, because sometimes we can't help it. You just notice, what does that feel like when I do that? What's going on here? What's going on in my mind, my body, with my emotions, that kind of stuff. And it is very much like just noticing how one moment unfolds into the next, right? So you'll notice that if you're hanging out and you have some thoughts coming up about whatever, then it's really easy to get kind of carried away by those, swept away, and then before you know it, you're 10 years down the road, and I ring the bell, and oh my God, the meditation's over already, and I was thinking about the Thanksgiving meal I'm going to make or something. There's also nothing wrong with that, but you can catch yourself when you do that and go, oh, okay, I'm getting caught up in this thought about Thanksgiving. That's okay, cool. And just notice it, that's it. This is like basic getting to know your own mind and hopefully making friends with it 101. And so the koan that we have for this month, I think this will be the last time we're sitting with it, is this long thing by this guy named Dogen, and it goes, the Buddha way is to study the self. So there you go. Study the self, study the mind, study the body, study the emotions, how all this stuff fits together with all the world around us. So the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be awakened by all the things of the universe, the birds, the rocks, each other, the carpet, to be awakened by all those things, or to be awakened by the 10,000 things. When you are awakened by the 10,000 things, your body and mind and the bodies and minds of everyone else drop away. So that's kind of like an initial enlightenment experience. It's like, yeah, what's that reaction? Rewind, yeah.
Yeah. So you can repeat this.
Yeah, and I'll say it a couple more times while we're meditating too. And just like, if you get stressed out about, oh my God, I can't memorize that, don't worry about it. 4
sections, right?
Yeah. Well, 5, but I'm not going to tell you the 5th one because that's the answer. No. And you can just notice, the great thing about this is you don't have to remember it word for word. you can actually kind of like can you think of a person, close your eyes, think of a person you know pretty well. And just notice if there's kind of a general vibe associated with them or a general feel that you get that kind of sums up that person without getting into details. Do you get that? It's kind of like when we're with someone, they leave an imprint on our mind like that. And it's not necessarily like a checklist imprint of, well, this person is kind and caring and very, very smart and they love animals. It's not all that, right? There's just a general sense that we have of that person. And so you can hang with just that general sense of the koan if you want to. So it's not necessarily about memorizing all the words. You just kind of hang with it. But yeah, I'll give it to you a few more times throughout the meditation. So the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be awakened by the 10,000 things. When you're awakened by the 10,000 things, your body and mind and the bodies and minds of everyone else drop away. So there's this dropping away of kind of, I don't know, there's no way to describe it other than dropping away of body and mind, you know. And so the great thing is that, like, what a weird thing to say, right? Body's mind dropping away, right? But that's this kind of, the weirdness of koans is that they're sort of given to us from the world of awakening, and we go, what? And then once you trip over awakening and you end up in that world, you go, oh, of course, that's the best way it possibly could have been described. And so there's this thing about, if I just sort of spend time with a koan, it might secretly drag me into the world of awakening without me even knowing it. Because if I knew how to get awakened, I would have done it by now, right? I would just, okay, there we go, that's great, now I never have to go back. But koans are kind of this, they know that we have guards up about that, right? Because we've all got ideas about how the world should be, how our relationship should be, how people should or shouldn't do things, right? How politics should go, and well, there shouldn't be starving children in Africa. We've all got all these ideas about the world, which may be right, but also there's this kind of extra thing that we put on the world, right? There's the chair, and then there's all my ideas about the chair that get piled up on top of it. So it's not about, oh, I need to get rid of all my ideas about the chair. It's just, I go, oh, okay, I just know, what's it like to have ideas about the chair? Does it hurt to have ideas about the chair? Right? And particularly like judgments, criticisms, ideas that things should be different, whatever. I just notice that hurts me when I carry those thoughts around, you know. And so what you can do is just hang out with the koan, just the general sense of it, or one of those little verses, if you like. Or even if there's just a single word that pops up, self. You just sit with that. What is that? Self. WTF is he even talking about when he says, right? Because what is he talking about? And every philosophical and spiritual tradition throughout history has a different idea of what that self is. And so really kind of the question is, well, what, in your experience, not in your intellect, but in your experience, what is the direct experience of having a self? What does a self consist of? What does it do? How does it operate? So that's kind of that first thing about the Buddha way, is to study the self. It's just to look, turn the light inward and see what's going on in there. And then we move into this kind of thing where, I was thinking about this earlier today, that you know, we're in an age right now where artificial intelligence is the big thing. Everybody's trying to do artificial intelligence. And they can get these incredibly smart programs that can do a lot of things, and they've got these complex algorithms, if this, then that, and ad infinitum, but it lacks like kind of the basic human essence, which is this creativity and love and spontaneity, right? You write a program, it can do complicated things, but it can't think outside the programming. It can't get outside the box. And so that's actually what I see the Zen project is to turn our artificial intelligence into actual live human intelligence, right? So how much am I? So the self could be conceived of as kind of a computer program or a system of algorithms, right? Jesse has learned that when somebody does this, I do that. Right? There's da-da, 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 da-da. It's like incredibly complex system of equations. And in a way, awakening is breaking out of that. And suddenly all these options we hadn't considered are available to us, right? It could be a simple thing like, oh, I could quit my job. I hate my job. Oh, look at this, or whatever it is. I could just tell this person I love them. It could be something as simple as that. Or I hadn't even realized that was an option until the scales fell away from my eyes, right? The stories fell away like that. So I think that to me is that. I talked last week about to study the self, or the Buddha ways to study the self, and I think that piece is to study the self is to forget the self. Right? You see it, and things just start to fall away a bit. And that's what the meditation practice is, I think, is a vehicle for looking deeper into that stuff. And when you look, if you keep looking at it, it starts to fall away on its own. And it's not like I made it fall away, it just starts to fall away on its own. It starts to wilt. There's a koan that goes, when the tree withers and the leaves fall, what is that? Golden wind revealing itself. So it's just awakening. The golden wind just comes in and takes all of our thoughts away. Can't throw them overboard. They just get blown away. So that's a lot of complicated stuff to take into your meditation with you. Do your best to forget everything I said. It will not help you. I promise.